wrong with Mike?
This is the story of Father Time. It should take about 34 minutes and 48 seconds. Well, hi everybody. Hi, Mike here. When meditating, reflecting, astral projecting about what should be my first episode, one story rises above the rest. And that's the story of a comedian by the name of Father Time, and how he still owes me $5. Let me set the stage. In Ohio, particularly the southwest portion of Ohio, there's a county called Montgomery. And in the eastern central portion of that county, from the years 2015 to about 2017, I was the man. I was the guy who could get you some of that stage time. I make it sound like drugs, 'cause it is. After about year 5, and by the way, new comics, nothing should really happen until at least year 5. If something happens, it's probably not healthy. And so I don't really want to make myself sound like I know everything about comedy, but because someone tapped me on the shoulder, I know everything about new comics in their first year or two. And of course, I was one. And so was Father Time. And by the way, I can proceed with this story pretty much unfettered by any knowledge of where Father Time is now. I'm not sure anybody else knows. If you do, please don't share with me yet until I finish this podcast, because I want to tell this story without any sort of remorse in case he's not among the living, but he just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I'll get to that later. About, year 5, guy named Jack tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I gotta move on from running this open mic it was at Wiley's Comedy Joint Club, which, depending on which ownership you would like to reflect back on." He and another lady by the name of Joanne ran the Sunday night open mic. And, it's a pretty good gig, but it gets tiring. The shows are always an experiment. You're the one who has to deal with all the requests. And if you're a comic and you find yourself being asked to fill this role, I would highly, highly suggest you choose an alias. If you're the person answering the emails, don't be Mike. I shouldn't have been Mike. I should have been another name that never existed. And to be honest, I know I've heard stories of where that's the system. I remember we went to Crackers. Me and a friend went to Crackers. My friend was a more accomplished comedian than I was. And just nothing to do on a Tuesday night. Hey, I'll hitch a ride with you. We'll go to Crackers together. I had already been accepted to do time at the open mic. The other comic didn't. But we decided we'd go, just hang out, and then get to meet Chris. Who's Chris? Chris is the guy who answers the emails. Must be a person of high influence. And when we went before the meeting started, the pre-show meeting, my friend and I sidled up to somebody at the front kiosk kind of thing and said, "Hey, we'd like to get to talk to Chris." And they kind of looked at each other and like, "Oh, Chris isn't here." Now, Brent Terhune ran the meeting, the pre-show meeting. Wonder if he knows who Chris is. I wonder if there is a Chris. People from Indianapolis tell us if there's a Chris. Or was that a fake name? If it's a fake name, good on you. You knew what you were doing. So I'd get all these requests, and my other partner was busy pursuing broadcasting. The guy I'm replacing, he was going to run for political office, believe it or not. So I kind of dove in. I kind of enjoyed reading all the requests. But it didn't take long before I realized that some of these are weird. If you send a weird email, you're probably going to be weird. If you have a stage name, probably going to be weird. Father Time was a stage name. During this story, I will only refer to him as Father Time and not his actual name in case, like I said, he's not among the living or something has befallen him that's not fortunate. But you know, I got this email from a guy named Father Time who said that he would like to come perform at the open mic show. Everything was in capital letters, numerous grammatical and spelling errors, which would, be sort of the foreshadowing of things to come. And he came, and I met a guy, Father Time. I'd place him about 70 years old, starting out new, and I don't have anything bad to say about that. If you're a new comic, there's no way that comedy is for any particular age bracket. But, this guy had a bit of more than a bit, of a speech impediment. And that's a problem. That's a hurdle. Let's put it that way. So, for example, like if I wanted to run a marathon, but one of my legs was 4 inches shorter than the other, I've got a pretty steep hill to climb. And I should probably mentally factor that in, that I have a little bit of a disadvantage to other people. However, this guy didn't feel that at all. He felt like he deserved more than everyone else. And I don't know if that had to do with his age or just something. After his set, I kind of thought, okay, that was relatively forgettable. There was something with a book and feathers fell out of the book and all onto the stage and something like there was a dead bird. That's all I really remember. I do remember maybe it was hard to get him off the stage. We might have had to light him a couple of times, the old flashlight. Hey, bink, bink, bink. Your 6 minutes is up. But after his set, he was on fire. And he wanted to get back the week after and the week after that. And the problem is, in that kind of capacity, nobody can come back the next week. Because in that email inbox, there's like 172 other messages waiting for you. Some of them in capital letters, some of them with people with stage names. Everybody just chomping at the bit to get on that stage. And to be honest with you, a comedy club open mic is about the best kind of venue to test new material. It's better than the bar show. No one's chatting in the side at the bar. It's just the lights are dimmed and pointing in your direction. It's like a drug if you do well or if you don't do well. I didn't hear a lot of laughter in the room when Father Time performed his set. And there's a term from that. It was Bowers from Indianapolis who said this term, and it stuck with me. He's like, some people are laugh deaf. It's kind of like being deaf, except you don't hear the silence. So it's the opposite of being deaf. Or is it? I don't know. You guys figure it out. But the bottom line is there's some people who just don't sense the lack of laughter. And there's a minority, but a decent amount of people who suffer from that sort of like dissonance. And he was one of them. So, basically time goes by, and it turns out I had to kind of, after a couple of years, the running the open mic, I mean, whoever does it for you now, be gentle with them. Okay, don't ping them with emails every day. Be nice to them. Don't demand a lot from them. And realize that it's kind of a pain in the ass job. Yes, you do get to put yourself up there once every show, and it is nice to be a leader. And to be honest with you, I think I was picked out not because I was anything great. I think it's because I started comedy when I was 40. And compared to all these kids in their 20s, I might have been the guy who appeared more responsible, had their shit together a little bit more because I'd just been around longer, that's all. And so it wasn't anything because I was a comedic genius. It was just like older white guy told other older white guy, hey, would you like to do this job? And I said, of course, yes, because I was motivated, man. And so is every comic in their first year or two. And that's the thing, is you have been bitten by some sort of like narcotic drug, and you can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop thinking about the next time you're going to get back up there. But the problem is you can't get back up there very often. You want to get up there like 4 times a day, but you just can't do it. And you want everybody to come see you, and that's how the open mic show works. New people bring people. And that's because the way the curve works is when you're starting out, you have this attractive value because your friends are curious. And you can bring your friends like, hey, so-and-so's doing stand-up now. And the problem is they're all coming to see you when you suck. Because in your first year or two, everybody sucks. So that's kind of one of the bites in the ass, is that everybody came and saw you when you sucked, and you begged everybody during the first 2 years, and now that you get better and better and better, now everybody's been there, done that. And they just kind of remember, he was all right. He was whatever. And some of the people who come see you, they do it to see you bomb. They're hoping you bomb. I literally had a guy from college come and see me once at a show when I went back to my hometown, and after the show, he's like, I was hoping you'd bomb. I wanted to see you bomb. A couple other college buddies, came in weird lists, like, we're just going to heckle you. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. Let's see if I could do that for you. How about I come heckle you at your golf league or whatever the shit you do? So it's one of those things. People just don't understand. But what keeps the open mic shows running is a bunch of new blood. And so Father Time gets a spot every once in a while. Everybody gets a spot because you are new. And we know that you could bring your friends. And it's not a government-sponsored program here. It's alcoholic capitalism. It's selling beverage. We're selling Budweiser over here. Okay? So the thing is that it's not fair all the time. But you do need to have the idea is to get to the point where you're good enough that the showrunner will be like, yeah, I know that after we have a bunch of people get up there with their underwear on or something, and a maxi pad stuck to their forehead, then somebody could come and sweep those turds off the stage and then keep people from walking out. That's where you want to be. Okay, sorry, that was a bit of a lecture back to Father Time. So the guy can't leave me alone. He's emailing every time. He's on my Facebook throwing stuff up on back then it was a wall. Okay. So it was like, you had the wall, and eventually he just couldn't stop. He just, every night. And then, I eventually got tired of this, and I walked away from the open mic at Wiley's. So I didn't control that room anymore, and someone took my spot, and everything was wonderful. And I kept running a bar show. I ran a bar show before I ran the open mic at Wiley's, and I went to another bar, and I started running another bar just every other week at a bar in Kettering. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll just keep doing this show just for goofs. No expectations. So Father Time was on Facebook, on the Dayton Comics group, clamoring that he needed a manager. He wanted an agent. So this is the idea that, no idea how you're on this curve, and in your first year or two, there's no way you should need an agent. But new comics have been bitten by this narcotic-like drug, and they just don't think like that sometimes. And some are worse than others. As a matter of fact, I just made a comment on one of the groups, the comic groups, saying I would do a podcast story about Father Time, and I told everybody it would be a solo podcast. In the comment, I got 3 emails asking me if they could be a guest on the podcast. The solo podcast. Maybe they didn't see the word solo, but still. And I haven't met you face to face. What am I supposed to say to that? So yeah, new comics are ginned up, but this guy was ginned up with dementia, I think. With a lack of filter. With some sort of idea that he was bigger than he was. So I've made comments on Facebook, and I've regretted them, and none greater than this comment. None have I regretted greater than this. Somebody commented on one of his things to the Dayton group, like, hey, I'm looking for a manager. And by the way, everything was misspelled. I have never seen so many different misspellings of the word manager. Sometimes it was manager. Sometimes it was manger. But then I goofed around and said, yeah, now that I'm not running the open mic at Wiley's, maybe I could be his manager. Someone's like, Mike, you want to do this? And then not a nanosecond went by before I had an email in my Facebook direct messages saying, hey, I'd like to be, you want to be my manager? I want to work with you as my agent. And I should have left it at that. But sometimes I just can't. So I went along with it. And I said, okay, well, I'm sorry. This is bringing back a lot of memories, but I said the first thing we'll need is some press shots. And I said, why don't you try something, get some help. And by the way, his wife would come with him to the shows, and she was lovely. And later on, she would sidle up to me and be like, I'm sorry he bugs you so much. And I'm like, yeah, I understand, And this part, I'm not really proud of what I'm going to tell you next, but people don't like passive aggression, and sometimes that's what I resort to. But you know what? Passive aggression is sometimes better than like aggressive aggression. That's where you punch someone in the face, So I don't know. It might have been I had a couple too many little sips of wine. But I'm like, yeah, we need some press shots then. Let's get working on this. So go out and get yourself some of the following photos. Maybe something near some railroad tracks. Like with railroad tracks in the background. I was trying to go for like the cheesy band album look. And but what I got back was just like him, kind of a medium close, chest up, nice suit on or whatever, and a gold necklace like he's gangster with his old man sunglasses and a fedora. But the railroad tracks were just kind of like sort of adjacent to the background. It wasn't like on the train tracks, looking cool. It was just like, hey, I'm here, and there's just like in the very upper corner of the frame, there's some train tracks, just kind of at a 45-degree angle. And then I said, get some pictures of you in front of a brick wall. And these things I thought would keep him busy for like a couple, 3 days or something. I just got to keep this guy busy. And like later, like I'm talking 3 hours later, he sends all these photos and he's like, "What do you think of these?" I'm like, "Oh shit." So the fact that it happened, like I might have messaged him from work or something at like 2 and he's got these photos done at like 5. I'm just like, I'm so screwed right now because this guy is so serious about this that I'm his manager. And by the way, so I'm the guy running the open mic show. Could you imagine that? Let's say that like me in my first couple sets I've ever done, I meet this guy who's running the open mic show. How did they get to do that? It wasn't something they applied to the job on Indeed. It was something that somebody knew you were someone that could be trusted. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm just saying whatever club you go to, the guy running the open mic show is usually someone who's been vetted. And then you, in your first couple of sets, you're going to be like, approach the guy and say you want him to be your manager? What kind of delusions are you going through? And this is why I did the whole photo thing. So then I'm like, okay, let's get you some gigs. So I kind of wanted to negatively reinforce this whole situation. So given that I had some experience in the area through volunteer work, I started calling, and he lives about an hour north of here, up near Lima. That's where he used to live. I don't know what's going on with the guy now. But so I just started calling assisted living centers. And I thought it would kill two birds with one stone. One, I didn't want to give him a glamorous gig. And I couldn't. I mean, people knew what was going on. It was social media. Everybody saw that he was posting crap on my Facebook page, and everybody was getting amused, and everybody would walk up to me like, "Hey, how about this guy?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I know." I'd play along with it. And so everybody knows what's going on. There's no way I could get this guy a good gig instead of someone else. So what I did is I started calling assisted living centers. "Yeah, do you do comedy? Can I talk to the entertainment coordinator?" And eventually I got one, and they're like, "Yeah, we'd like to do comedy. How much will you charge?" And I'm like, $50, for him to do 30 to 45 minutes. And they're okay, send us an invoice. I have to go into like Microsoft Word and create my own invoice, like a fake company with an invoice, like such and such entertainment. And then I send them an invoice, and they're like, "Good, we'll pay him on the spot in cash after the show." So I talked to Father Time. I'm like, "Hey, look, you got you a gig. Go to it. It's this time of day. It's sometime in the afternoon." And by the way, the lady, she's like, "Well, we don't have a sound system, or do you have a sound system?" And I'm like, I did have a sound system, but I didn't want to haul up there and be the sound guy. I'm like, "No, I don't have a sound system." And she's like, "Well, I just have like a karaoke machine." I'm like, "Yes, that's perfect." So I'm like, "Hey, you get up there, they have a microphone, you get there, here's the date, and here's the agreement from now on. Do you agree to this? Every gig you get paid for, I want 10%. And he's like, "Yeah," and so like, I followed back up with him, and I'm like, "How did the gig go?" I asked the lady at the assisted living center. She's like, "It didn't go that good. It didn't, it was our fault though. It was our fault. It didn't go that good." So, and I thought that would make him go away, but it didn't. And the posts on my Facebook wall kept continuing. Like, "I just sent you an email." He would post on my wall that he sent me an email, a personal email. And people, if you're listening to this, some people probably remember this stuff. And he's like, "Can you get me booked on this and that?" I'm like, "Hey, this is not how the booking happens. It's kind of like when you make an agreement with somebody, it's not like out there for everybody to see." So I said something like that. "Hey, when we got to talk privately when we talk about this. So like everybody can see this." And I even said like, "Everybody who's reading this, click like on this comment." and 37 people click like. So, a couple things. I got him on my bar show. I was so frustrated. And sometimes maybe I need to be more direct with people because I think this guy needed to be talked to directly. I sent my brother a copy of the clip of one of his clips. He did a set up north in this hotel where they had a comedy club adjacent to it. The same room where BK Irons punched out Joe D's, that room. And he had a clip up there, and I sent it to my brother, and my brother's like, yeah, I can tell by the way he talks, he's had brain damage in his past. And I'm like, damn, okay, jeez. So all this kind of dichotomy of like, I'm pissed at the guy, but I feel sorry for him at the same time. I got him on my Cat's Lounge show, and I put him on the flyer. And that's the thing is, oh my God, new comics, like, look, if you see a flyer with 6 faces on it, and here's the show, it's on blank, blank date at blank and blank, don't comment like, how do I get on this show? Somebody made a flyer with 6 faces on it, and it's not yours. You're not on the show. And so you're just annoying people is what you're doing. You could go to the show, shake hands with people, watch the horrific happenings of it, and then, be, hey, afterwards, like, next show I'd like to get on it if I could, or I could do a guest spot, just do like 5 minutes, and I bet you that would work. But I don't think anybody made it big from Facebook comments. Like, I landed that gig because I made a comment on Facebook. So, but this guy would do it on, can I get on the show, this and that. And he annoyed a lot of people and everybody knew he was annoying. So I put him on my show and I put him on the flyer, which probably didn't help other people running other bar shows. Now I just kind of, sounding it out, I just realized that maybe wasn't the greatest thing to do. But what I did is I also thought I would create a character based loosely on him. So not Father Time. I was Uncle Eon. And I had a fedora. I went to the Valley Thrift and I bought like a 50-cent plastic fedora, and I had a cane. I saw my friend Aaron Phillips over at Feathers and I bought a cane. And then, I had like stupid sport coat that I had because I was stupid from when I cared about my job. And I actually like did 5 minutes of that shtick right before his spot. And Uncle Eon, he had like a different voice. It's been a while since I've done it. And he'd tell cheesy jokes, but but better than the ones that Father Time did, which sounded like they were just lifted right out of a 1920s joke book, Like, ladies and gentlemen, by a round of applause, how many of you have had one of your hands amputated? And then no one would clap, and I'm like, I'll be damn near every single one of you. Wow. My wife died in a bizarre accident at the J.M. Smucker factory. She fell into a vat of steaming hot preserves. And it was raspberry. I wish it could have been apricot. It was her favorite. And so on. So what happened, I have a fake mustache and it fell off. Like while I was doing this. And then that must be some of the medications I'm on. I'm sorry. That's one of the side effects. And I go up and I'm at the bar after, and Father Time does his stuff, and then after he's like, I can't do a really good impression, but he had a really, really lispy, stutterish stammer. Like, I didn't know that was you until your mustache fell off. Like he didn't know it was me. And I saw people are like, yeah, he's making fun of Father Time there. It's just, I got him on Don Smith's radio show at Wright State. And I told him like, hey, and I think Don legitimately he was curious, And I'm like, hey, now here's the deal. I'm getting you, it's an unpaid gig, but it's radio, it's exposure. It's exposure. Right state, like the radius of that reaches to like Home Depot. No, actually it does. It reaches pretty good. The right state radio station, 106.9. And I told him, like, here's the deal. It's a radio gig. You better dress nice for the audience. And he wore a three-piece suit. And I'm just joking, like, you don't dress nice for the radio. So eventually I snapped. Eventually I just had enough. He kept throwing shit on my Facebook, and it was like, it wasn't that he was doing that. It was, I knew everybody was watching, and people were messaging me like, did you see what he just did? And it was just too much of a spectacle, and I just didn't. It was just the wrong night of the week or something, and I just responded like, "Stop bothering me, leave me alone," all in caps. And once again, a nanosecond later, I get like another email, like on Facebook, a direct message, like all in caps, like, "What the hell is wrong with your problem? What's your problem?" And I haven't done this much, but I hit that block button. And it was probably the first time I've done it for somebody that wasn't just like spamming me, the first time I've done it for somebody who is like, oh, and another thing is he started calling everybody, wanting to know my phone number. And I had a landline at the time. And he called a bunch of friends to ask. He got their phone number, and then he was calling everybody, asking them what my phone number was. And so I just realized that it was just too much bother, and I just blocked the guy, and he disappeared. And I heard about him a little bit afterwards, rumblings, same kind of behaviors. He might have glommed onto someone else, but that's the last I've heard. And he still owes me $5. So yeah, to wrap up, there's no rules in comedy. I don't really believe there are. People will, turn their nose up at things. You do props, you do a character, you do whatever. If you make it funny, to me, there's no rules. But there's rules for being a person. And if you're somebody new and you're inexperienced, your default shouldn't be that you're better than everybody. Look around you. You say you do an open mic and there's 10 other people who do 6 minutes and a headliner. Do they have a manager? So I don't know if it's that kind of insecurity that made him think this, or I don't even think he had any insecurity. I think he just legit thought he was going to blow up. And that kind of stuff is if you really believe that, good. But you probably ought to keep it to yourself, because there's a lot of failure out there. And I don't know what's going on with the guy. Anybody wants to clue me in, you can send me a message, but maybe you shouldn't. I'm kind of good, guys. And so that's the story of Father Time and where we left it. And I hope he's well, but also I don't really want to find out firsthand. All right. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Have a question for Mike? Email him at mikecanistero@icloud.com.